Добрый день, коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Let me open our panel that is dedicated to the tools to improve capitalization of the venture capital assets. Today on stage we have managers of venture companies, also representatives of venture funds, those that evaluate the work of such companies, and RVC is also here. Besides the function of a development institute, it is also a venture fund. So I would like to introduce you to the participants of the discussion. Ekaterina Bereziy, Exelet, Chief Development Officer and co-founder, Almaz Capital Analyst Tatyana Dadasheva, RVC in Israel, Alexander Babitsky, Oleg Konev, Managing Partner of DaVinci Capital, Alexey Nesterov, General Director of Perm Chemical Company, and Pyotr Lukianov, Managing Partner of Fistech Ventures. I would like, without breaking traditions of our conference, I would like to start with the open question to the audience. We today plan to discuss issues that have to do with success of venture companies, and besides this standard truth that advanced product, demanded product, the team that is ready to promote the product in the market, we also understand that there is a number of tools to develop venture companies going to international markets, focus on big companies, flagships of national economy, proper partnerships, proper investors, and they also talk about the role that the government should take in supporting venture companies and forming the venture market. This is the questions that we'd like to start with. You probably already have those voting devices. So we ask you to answer the question, should the government support Russian venture companies? Three variants. Yes, this support, financial support, is important, and it should be direct financial support from the government. The second variant, yes, but the emphasis should be on non-financial instruments, such as creating favorable conditions, infrastructure, certification, patents. And the third answer, third option for the answer is, we call it market, that says no, the government should not participate. Market and the private venture capital can prioritize on its own without the state. So please vote. In order to vote, you need to press button OK. You need to choose one of the options from 1 to 3. We see that in our audience we have support, the supporters of the market support, they are in minority, and almost evenly we have those people who think that the government should directly financially participate in the projects and indirectly by providing non-financial instruments. Frankly speaking, for me, the result is not surprising because we understand that these answers, firstly, they reflect the degree of maturity of the venture market in Russia today. And clearly, the government institutions should be taking active part in the venture market. And continuing the topic, I would like to give the floor to the representative of the venture company that works in such a complex market as medical technologies, Ekaterina Bereziy. We understand that this market in Russia, at least, without the government participation, can't really work. So Ekaterina, please, the floor is yours. Friends and colleagues, for a minute, I would like to show you what is Exatlet. This man was injured in the car accident. His spine was injured and he can't walk at all. So we made it exoskeleton, and it helps a paralyzed person. A person can be paralyzed as a caused by stroke or car accident, and these people can make steps like that. This is the 6th generation of exoskeletons, and we, as technological startup, made over the last 3 years. Now Exathlete was already certified in the Russian market. We sold about 30 exoskeletons in Russian clinics. We have a representative office in South Korea. We opened the branch there, and we signed cooperation agreements with some other companies in Middle East and Europe. And I understand challenges of technological startup. If you asked me this question 3 years ago, I would answer the same way as you say, and why technological startup needs money, because they're going to be improperly spend it. Let's just give them a purposed loan or infrastructure support. But Exathlete that was born in 2013, firstly, it was balanced very well in terms of the team. We had 10 genius engineers, and over their lifetime they created a lot of robotic products, and we immediately decided on the strategy of development, and we thought how the marketing will go, and we need a lot of money for that, and it takes a few years for companies to go there. So in the world, there are 5 exoskeletons in the world. You need to understand that you can be quite proud of our country, because one of 5 exoskeletons that is in the world at the commercialization stage, one of them is ours, Russian. So 3 projects, they grew from university researchers. They're big labs that were fully financed, well financed, and there is a professor that works with the artificial intelligence. There is a team of graduate students. They have like 20-year projects, and over this time they trialed all the ideas and prototypes and models. So that was a good foundation for the start. And when they understand the prototype is ready for commercialization, then they have investment money. They branch out as a separate company, and they develop in the market. Only one project except for Exathlete. This is Israeli exoskeleton Revmako that started as a startup because the founder was paralyzed. He can't use the exoskeleton himself because he has a very high level of paralysis. But the level of trust was very high to him, so he understood the problem and he had this need. And they, as a startup, they went to IPO. They went through all the stages of funding, and I think that's public support and crowd funding. They had that. They spent more than 80 million for the project, for Evolk. For Exathlete, our company, spent about 170 million rubles. It's about $3.5 million over the last 3 years. And we, as together, when we were financing the project first year and a half, and then we got to the death valley, because, so to speak, because we need engineering money, and it's quite a expensive toy, because a prototype, to design it, it takes $1.5 million. And another expenses we have, this is the team, these are engineers, the programmers, these are the unique people that for some reason they didn't go to work in banks. So they got a very good education, they didn't go to the places where the level of salary is high, but for some reason they stayed in their profession, and it's clear as soon as startup stops paying the money, so they have nothing to do, they need to feed their families, so they leave the startup and go to a different place. So at this point it's very important to see what technological startup comprises of, and in order to get to this 6th prototype, once in 6 months you need to do R&D to design it, to test it, and redo it again. It's like 6 times. It's quite an expensive path, and infrastructure support is very important, because what we encountered, because we didn't have the manufacturer, we needed a manufacturer who would help us at the prototyping stage, when it's not a manufacturing line. That, yes, they exist, but it's not the one that we needed. We needed a manufacturer that would help us to do like 2 prototypes, a unique one. And it clearly, with the intellectual property, we had a lot of difficulties for technology as a technological startup, because the patented invention in Russia and in the world, you need to do research, you need to see the strategy of patenting, and actually a patent strategy is one of the most important aspects for the further investments. But unfortunately, our level of knowledge and understanding of how to approach this issue as a technological startup, it was quite low, because all technological startups, these are the people who participate in this, these are the people who did something different, something else, so they never dealt with intellectual property. So no matter how you look at it, there is always an issue of financial support and structural support. And in this regard, we were very lucky, because on our way we had experts who helped us at different levels when we needed it. And now, looking back, to even forecast the number of challenges that we would have, we would probably never started it, knowing how lucky we would be, because really it's a question of luck. And RVC became our portfolio investor when we were really like in a death valley. For us, it was great luck. We spoke to more than 130 funds, and the risks that everybody reasonably evaluated, and of course the risk was the team of engineers. It wasn't clear if they're going to go to design this exoskeleton. So what is exoskeleton? This is a medical equipment. It's not the fact that the medical industry will actually certify this, and it's a new thing. Nobody understands how it works and how to deal with this. With the IP, it's not clear that with intellectual property, maybe they're going to do another skeleton. It's going to be local Russian market, and all these costs that we will have to incur in order to design the skeleton. So they're going to be through the roof for one Russian market, and this is not competing clearly with the other markets. And to certify the design, and it's not the fact that we're going to be able to certify this medical equipment, and as a result we won't be able to sell it even in Russia, and so on and so forth.
And when you look at all these risks, you understand that not a single prudent venture investor, which who are very few in this country anyway, will give money to such project at the stage where we're in mid-2015. And from this perspective, we really believe that meeting RVC was a landmark for us because thanks to them we made a product and we're tapping international markets now. It's a very interesting case, Ekaterina, where a company effectively didn't have an opportunity to raise private investment, and without multi-aspect support of development institutions will not have any opportunity to promote this product. Now probably we'll be able to look at this issue from a different angle. I would like Tatyana Dadasheva to discuss with us this issue. She is from Almas Capital Fund. In their portfolio they don't have a company which would receive support from any government structure. Almas Capital positions itself as an American fund which promotes to the global markets, primarily to the USA markets, IT solutions from Russia and Eastern Europe. And even today they have quite a sizable list of successful exits. Thank you, Sergey. I will vote for option number 2 for a simple reason, because none of our portfolio companies received any direct financial support from the government. However, the state has a major impact on development of the market in Russia. The internal market is pretty big in Russia, and although most of our companies are looking for the global markets, primarily to USA, a portion of our portfolio is focused on the domestic market, like Yandex and Price. They operate rather mainly in Russia. Therefore, we consider to examine the Russian market, and there are plenty of interesting things there. But state support is required for a variety of reasons. Companies emerge where there is a market. There is a market not only from the perspective of the size, but the proper legal framework and the proper ecosystem. Since many technologies which emerge face a problem where the legal and regulatory base doesn't take into account, like blockchain, for example, which is not found in the modern legal base. Such companies cannot appear in Russia, they just stay in the labs. If such a company reaches a certain level, creation of a product and entering the market, they normally would move to another country because the ecosystem is there. In this respect, I believe that the government should help in creation of the ecosystem, primarily by providing a legal framework support. If these conditions are met, then most likely we'll see an influx of investors to the market, and many institutional investors are eager to diversify their portfolios in geographic terms by investing into emerging market. Russia is an emerging market, and Eastern Europe is on this list as well, and Brazil as well. Most of institutional investors invest into local funds, and the more infrastructure is developed, the more we'll have such funds. We're now smoothly moving from the subject of government support to venture companies to the subject of international development, international focus for venture companies. To what extent it is a prerequisite for Russian companies to be interesting for potential investors? My question is to Oleg and Alexey, most likely. To what extent, in your opinion, your company, Perm Chemical Company, this company exports about 80% of its output to foreign markets. To what extent entry to the international markets is an important lever for Russian innovation companies? Thank you for this question. What does it mean lever to enter international markets? In my opinion, before we go to international market, we should stabilize the situation in the domestic market. What are we going to produce and who will need these products? Yes, 90% of our products is exported. These are high-tech products. That's pharmaceuticals and microelectronics. We export it to Japan, States, Western Europe, South Korea, etc. But if we look, maybe I do not understand you exactly, but in my opinion, for a venture fund, an opportunity to enter the Western market is of paramount importance for at least one very important reason. Because if you produce products which are in demand in the Western markets, and the Western markets, unfortunately, are well ahead of us in terms of production, you create at least a basis for such demand in Russia, which can be used for quick and efficient development, for fast and efficient development. That was my question. Is interest for Russian products in international markets a test of quality and the ability to survive? Yes. It's not a test, it's a very challenging test. We keep fighting someone, but when we produce and deliver products to the Western market for the microelectronic sector, 14 nanometers, and our main consumers such are like giants like Toshiba, Samsung, Micron, etc. And when our industry with significant government financial injections tries to organize production with 90 nanometers using foreign-made equipment, it's difficult. When we have competition from major Western companies with sales worth of billions, it's very difficult for us to compete with them. It's very interesting. It drives us to produce increasingly higher quality products. It's one thing to produce anything in your lab, but just once. To produce a high quality product and to deliver it, but when you need to deliver statistically identical products each month, you cannot deliver in one batch very high quality goods and in the next batch just on inferior quality product. But test for supply to the export market and dealing with the Western companies is a very cruel test, which makes us keep to invest continuously in development of our methods and technologies. Thank you. Oleg, I would ask you two questions. The first one, to what extent the international focus in activities of portfolio companies is a decisive factor for you when you consider entering the capital of such company? And second, involvement of an investor who appears sooner or later. To what extent an external investor should be involved into operations of your company and support your company in promotion and market promotion? Thank you for your question, Sergey. I would like to briefly describe our strategy, the strategy of our investment. How we select companies. We look not at sectors, we looked at export potential. Why? Because the main issue of Russia is liquidity, and we as a private equity fund, we see first and foremost how we can sell something before we buy anything. These are the main questions when we consider any investment. Just a couple of slides. We set up a joint fund with RVC. It's a pre-IPO fund. We want to have pretty fast transactions for exit for RVC, later stages for private equity. It's a parallel fund, parallel to another fund of ours, where we have institutional investors, but all of them foreign, like European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, global funds of funds. Yesterday I talked about pension funds and discussed how money flows from pension funds to the real sector, sources, average rates of return, etc. We made several deals. 2 deals are being now closed. Some more words about our criteria. Naturally, we negotiate a company for a long time before we enter. Structuring a deal is very important because investors do not have such a clear idea of business. They want to have an assurance against various risks. Next stage, we normally try to take not a majority stake. We look for gifted businessmen. We have also always a minority share, a significant minority share. What else we can bring to a company? Access to capital markets. Since we're looking for the companies with export potential, we have some very good experience here. And since the team is already in place, notwithstanding that Da Vinci is a small group, we have about 30 people, but we take care of the geographic territory from New York to Tokyo. It's New York, Tokyo, Abu Dhabi, Moscow, etc. In Tokyo, I entered in agreement with a local player in December last year. We set up a Russian-Japanese fund for $145 million just during our president's visit to this country. The main idea is transfer of technologies from Japan to Russia. And finally exit. How do we help our companies? Before we enter, we think of how we'll exit jointly, or how our existing shareholders can earn more with our assistance. I will describe our trajectory based on a case study. SOSLine is on the top 6 list for Microsoft dealings. Among other things, they are a distributor of many other vendors. And our main objective was to provide the following assistance, not only to raise capital into an existing business, but also to ensure that they penetrate new markets. They are present in 25 countries. And maybe smaller deals, they could close them together. But if we talk about a big deal, a great deal, for example, to buy a number 3 player in the road, I doubt very much that a Russian company without additional capital of different origin, of foreign origin, based on private equity funds, will be able to close such deal. I don't think you will find many deals of this type. Our objective is to bring them to the capital market and to close a great deal to become a leader in the world. Russian companies just penetrate foreign market, probably will change our colors on the way. It's a difficult political environment. We had some stories of the last year with EPAM, a company from Belarus, a bigger company. They turned into a leader in America for IT outsourcing. Their market cap is around $4 billion at New York Stock Exchange. We raised some money, provided access to capital markets, had an M&A transaction, then we selected the place for IPO, with sort of expansions to other markets, etc. We do the same with our portfolio investment. This is the use useful side of the private equity fund. They can bring business to you. I'm confident and I'm sure that Russian companies should set ambitious objectives, thinking about expansion to foreign countries with a focus on local markets. If you have a big share of the market here, you should think of new products or expansion to foreign markets. And this strategy suits our company, Da Vinci. Thank you.
Обратимся к международному опыту.
Let's look at the international experience. Alexander, I would like to ask you a question, but not about the international perspective, but it's clear that for Israeli venture companies, this is not an urgent issue. So if you're a venture company in Israel, you have to focus on international markets. But I would like to ask you about other tools to increase capitalization that are a priority in terms of the venture market in Israel and in terms of the development stage of the market, because it's one of the international success stories and venture market stories, and what role it plays in Israel, where the venture market is today, and what are the priority instruments to develop venture companies, what are success factors. And this is quite a broad question. I will try to answer it. In Israel and in Russia and like everywhere, success factors, they're the same. So if it's a small company and it manages to close a contract with a big brand, with a big player, it always helps. They're always looking for so-called hooks. You know, what you look at hundreds of companies, and if a small startup is of interest among other manufacturers. For example, our portfolio company, Gauzy, it attracts Daimler's interest, and immediately, so what they find in this little company, and so success factors, they are universal, and as you properly stated, that the Israeli company doesn't have a choice. They don't have a choice because the local market is tiny, and nobody is going to be dealing with this. And the company from the start, they look at the global market and they're planning their development in the global market. And I think that this trend in Russia is also gradually taking its place, and people understand that the world thinks similarly, and the consumer behaves similarly. So that's why globalization is there, and the success factors are also global. So therefore, I think that Israel is anyhow different from others. All these small companies, they need access to capital, they need interesting partners, big partners, they need markets, they need to go through all the regulations and certifications, everything that Ekaterina mentioned. The problems are similar, challenges are similar, and they're similarly approached. It's clear that for some people it's easy, for some people it's more difficult. Israeli market is just physically very small, and it helps in some way because it's easier to communicate, distances are smaller. International investors who come to Israel, they can meet with many companies just for 2-3 days. We're in the region, there are no big regions here, that's why some things are simpler. That's what I think. Thank you. Piotr, if we talk about investment strategy of Fiztech Ventures, what matters are a priority when you're looking at potential investments? Yes, thank you. We had a discussion, shall we look at the international market or not? In fact, criteria of the market that the company is looking at. I think for any investor, this is one of the priorities. Here, my position is that, and this is what we observing, that the company should orient itself on the big markets. If we look at Anavita company, then this company shows all the key components for success. It was oriented on the Russian market. There were investors, the founders, and the capitalization was 1 billion plus. And therefore, if we separate those companies that orient on the local market, then we may miss some opportunities. But there are some other interesting examples. For example, our fund LP, Mr. Timashev's, he has a software company. So its value is about several millions of dollars, and only 3% of its revenue is in Russia. And if the founder of this company would be orienting only on the Russian market, he wouldn't make the money he made. So therefore, the principle of reason. So the company should orient on the big market, no matter if it's local or international. And I think that the problem of all Russian founders, as soon as they make several million of money, so several tens of millions of dollars, they'll become complacent. They think, so you have enough money, so the function of the investor is clear. And for investors, it's their task is to broaden the horizons of those LPs. And the experiments with the foreign market, it's quite expensive experiments. And if your purpose is to to test your competitiveness, so I don't think that it's a smart use of money. So we even have in the Middle East and in the US, the money you need to spend there much more, especially because of the exchange rate of ruble. So experiments may be quite sad. So the key idea here is common sense. So talking about the public support that was asked today, we have 3 funds. In one of them, we have money of our company, and a priori, we think that the financial support from the public sector is useful, having our own experience with this. And I would say what is not so useful, this is the direct participation of the government in equity of the company, because the state as a manager, especially of small and medium-sized companies, is not as effective as it could be. As a limited partner or as a grant support, it's again looking at an example of the United States or Israel as a grant support for startups and companies about $4 billion a year. So something that Skolkovo gives away to the companies, it's I would say this is like night and day. The same with LP, Israel and Singapore, things that we saw, the history of development of venture ecosystems in these countries. At the first stage, the government was getting quite a serious leverage, so now it's less. In Singapore, it was 6-to-1, 7-to-1. So all developed economies and all economies that we're looking at, talking about our venture industry, they use the public leverage very actively, and I don't think we need to invent a bicycle. We just need to look at the instruments that already exist. There is such a company, Bereziy. Many people know this company. In fact, this is a beautiful example that in Russia they have this import substitution company, Bereziy company. It appeared because of some guarantees of from the state order. In other words, they say, if you're going to make such a rocket, so we will give you money for further projects. So without such form of public support, this company would not emerge. And I think that's quite indicative example. Talking about the Russian system in general, all these questions should be asked differently in the context of the area you're talking about. If you're talking about internet, or if we look at the hardware sector, I can say that it works completely different. If you're talking about internet, the supply here is much more, and the capital is about tens of millions of dollars. The companies, they raise rounds like 10, 20, and $50 million. Many companies like that. If you're talking about investments in the energy efficient projects, robotics, I think that investors that can raise 10 million plus, there are no such projects. If we talk about Musk, ESG, and Tesla, before the first revenue, they both raised $400 billion. When we look at the European market, so such companies here cannot appear because this money does not exist here. So therefore, in our country, if we want to invest in Russia, we need to, besides everything else, we need to focus on the capability of the company to raise the next round. And looking at the global market actually helps, especially after 2014. Many funds that invested in Russian companies, they saw the double-fold drop of dollar revenue. They saw it. Many venture companies, their focus changed. They closed investments into Russia and they started investing abroad, and they even positioned themselves not as Russian funds but as foreign funds. And from the point of view of attracting rounds, saying that you don't go to the foreign market, it's like a bad manner, because every company that respects itself, they say they're export oriented, we compete globally. So 1 year, 2 years we work in Russia and then we go global. But and again, I can repeat myself, it's a criteria of reason when you plan, even when you talk to investors. So this is something you have to keep in mind. Thank you very much. And I also have a question to you. So this segment, 10 million plus, as you say, is pretty much closed. It's not in the market. So do you think it's possible for the government to cover this niche? You mean financially? Yes. Yes, I think it's possible. Our government is trying to do this. I know that Rosnana and to create co-funds. I think it's one of the ways to do it is to be as LP in the fund. If in Russia there's 5-10 big funds that invest in this area, obviously the market would emerge. It emerged when we had smaller funds with the foreign participation. There were 8 funds 5-7 years ago. Before we didn't have the market as a system. Then after that, there were deals and movements in the market. And the short answer is yes, the government can cover that. But of course, with the money is not the solution, the only solution. The government should help the private investors to feel comfortable in the market, because I think that purely public money, I think it's a bad way. There should be some co-investment stories. I think so. Thank you, Piotr. We have time to Ekaterina. I'm very grateful to you for your words, because this round, when you start with 10 million plus, because this is a scalability round, when you need smart money, it's not just money. This is the money with competences, with the possibility to develop broad infrastructure for the partner, because the task is when you get to the different market, it's not only financial task. You not only hire in salespeople, you need management, you need sort of internal assets of the company in order to provide for the operations of the company so that money wouldn't go into sand. So for the government, the government cannot just help with the money. You need to have other partners that would help to promote Russian technologies in other markets. And of course, it should be a separate program, properly formulated program.
But with clear commercial participants who understand how can they rapidly test the business model, because all markets in the medical sphere are different. We're all people and we have similar diseases, but in terms of operations, these markets are very different. In ideal world, it should be a partner who has been already present in this market and knows the structure of this market and how to enter that. Thank you. On the subject, I have a comment. 10 plus, that when the commercial future of a company is clear, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. The state should help where a private investor finds life difficult. In Israel, there are about 30 funds which invested in medical devices. Now, we have much less funds, maybe 3 to 4 funds, which continue to invest in this area, although it is a very important issue. But it is not very easy. There are places where you can earn money in a faster way, and probably these are the areas where the government should help, where there is a market gap. Thank you. We're going to have a couple of questions from the floor. You are welcome. No questions. Yes. Not everything is clear, okay? I would like to thank everyone for very interesting speeches, and I think it would be appropriate to ask at least one question, because we may be under impression that no one understood anything. I understood only half of the stuff. In addition to the American market and everything that is related to it, where do you want to sell your products? Where you can sell your products? Or everyone should line up after Almas Capital and move in one direction? Thank you for a question. In fact, notwithstanding the fact that we have our office in America, it's not the only market that we consider. We have a portfolio company, Sinara, with its main clients in Japan. They raised investment from SoftBank in Japan. It's their major client. They penetrated the Japanese market. Effectively, the United States of America is not the single option for going international. It's just the largest market, and you have the biggest number of exits there. If you look the distribution by geography, USA ranks #1. But Asian markets are rapidly developing and catching up. In China, for example, there is plenty of investment. In Unicorp, for example, 8 of them are in China. It is an interesting market, but each fund looks primarily where they have expertise and knowledge. An investor should encourage a company and to invite them to penetrate international markets. But how this investor can help you? We have expert knowledge about the States, and we help companies to enter the American market. The expert knowledge we view as understanding the market, contacts with partners, contacts with other venture funds which wanted to see as partners in next rounds of investment, and also contacts with corporations which may buy this company in future. I think that for each fund, the decision where they have a partner and expert knowledge, etc., they should take this into account, but we have a lot of funds who are interested in other markets, not only the American market. Any more questions? economy, but business demon, thanks to RVC. In 2005, I defended a thesis, a diploma in the Academy of National Economy. That's creation of a system of investment in high-tech companies based on the city of Tokyo example. I read a lot of books, including Catherine Campbell, Venture Market, etc. You will find all the things there that we discussed here. What I'm driving at is that this book was written after dot-com bubble, after the unicorns who, like in wealth theory, like wealth and risk theory, you talk about wealth only, but you do not saying about risks that are in stock for a venture company. No one talks about the technology risks that we see going forward. The main risk. Donald Trump is not by chance. It's a reform of the global order. And for me, it's Mr. Objectivity. Why don't you pay attention to the biggest trouble that awaits us in the next 2 or 3 years? If I'm wrong, just convince me. And what's the biggest thing? You talk about wealth, but the point is that the penchant for risk is 2 or 3 times more than wealth. Because therefore Rosnana actually kept its funds on bank accounts but invested. And RVC doesn't have any investment capital, and Rosnana has. We can talk a lot about that. Thank you for your question. Risks in any investment activity are there. No one says that they are not there. You can talk about them. The next panel will discuss the successful case of investment. We can discuss the failures in investment, but it will be more difficult to find a speaker. There are risks, everyone is aware of them. Everyone knows what will be the outcome. Each Russian of my age lived through 3 or 4 crises, knows how it looks like. But we carry on. You can stop breathing and die, but it's not the way out. I agree with Alexander. Life will not end. But our panel is close to its end. I would like to thank our speakers, our audience for participation. Thanks to all colleagues. Thank you.